"Pack your things and get out," he said to his pregnant wife. "I don't need you anymore," she whispered back. "That lottery money is mine. My luck, my destiny. You just happened to buy the ticket," Marcus told his pregnant wife as he prepared to abandon her for his secretary. "That doesn't make you entitled to my fortune." Adiz stood in shock, hand on her 7-month pregnant belly, watching the man she had sacrificed everything for dismiss her contributions like trash. He had forgotten she kept every receipt, every bank statement, every text message. This billionaire husband thought he could kick out his pregnant wife and keep everything. What she did with her legal half destroyed him completely. Marcus Chin was a man who had everything now. He was the newest billionaire in Lagos, and that day, he was about to throw away the woman who had given him everything. But his life was going to shatter today. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. He was standing in their small apartment with his lawyer, signing documents for a new penthouse in Ikoyi. His designer shoes clicked against the worn tiles. Then he saw her, his wife of 8 years, standing in the doorway, 7 months pregnant, hands cradling her swollen belly. Her hair was tied back simply, wearing the same faded dress she'd worn all week. Her face was exhausted, but she stood there with quiet dignity. Something about her used to make him look twice. Then his eyes fell on her wedding ring. His stomach turned. It wasn't disgust. It was something worse. Shame he refused to feel. That simple gold band he bought 8 years ago when he had nothing. A cheap ring from a street vendor in Balaga Market. One he now wanted to forget. He slowly turned his back. People were watching to the window, but Marcus didn't care. He faced his lawyer. "Is the divorce ready?" he asked coldly. She gasped, her hand moving to her chest. Her voice cracked. "Marcus, were you saying?" He didn't turn around, fingers adjusting his Rolex. "You heard me," he said barely above a whisper. She stepped forward, belly heavy. "This is our baby, your child." He finally looked at her. "Where's the man I married?" She touched her ring, twisting it nervously. "He died," Marcus said flatly, "the day I became rich." She looked down, tears forming but not falling. He had changed. The lottery ticket, the one she bought with her last savings while he was jobless and depressed, had won 350 million naira. Enough to build an empire. Enough to destroy a marriage. Marcus Chun had made many decisions in his life, but this was something he'd regret forever. Something was dying in him. A piece of his soul he'd never get back. He looked again at his wife, Adiz, standing with her hand on her belly and her eyes full of betrayal. He pulled out an envelope, placed it on the table, then said coldly, "There's money here. Enough for the baby. Take it and go." But she shook her head. "I don't want your money. I want my husband." Her voice was soft but breaking. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Your husband was a failure. I'm not him anymore. I'm someone who deserves better." But Adiz hadn't moved. "Better than the woman who believed in you," she whispered. And just like that, she turned slowly and walked toward the bedroom. Marcus stood there, chest tight. He turned to his lawyer. "Make sure she signs everything. I want this done by tomorrow." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, she's 7 months pregnant. Maybe we should—" "I don't pay you to think," Marcus snapped. The lawyer nodded and gathered his briefcase. Marcus waited a minute, 5, 10. Then Adiz came back, carrying a single bag. Inside, a few clothes, the baby's first ultrasound photo, and a notebook filled with recipes she'd planned to cook for their child. She stood at the door. "I'll sign," she said quietly, voice hollow. "What?" "I'll sign your papers. But I want my half." Marcus froze. "What half?" "The lottery ticket. I bought it. With my money. My last money when you couldn't even afford bread. By law, I'm entitled to half." Marcus's jaw clenched, eyes darkening. This woman wasn't just walking away. She was taking something from him. And it burned. Adiz didn't sleep that night. The image of her husband, his cold eyes, the lawyer's papers, the man she loved becoming a monster, all of it haunted her. The next morning, she came back with her own lawyer, but this time, her hands weren't shaking. She had made a choice. Inside, the same apartment now being emptied by movers carrying Marcus's new furniture out. Plasma screens, Italian leather, marble sculptures. She found Marcus in the living room, surrounded by luxury. As always, when he saw her, his eyes narrowed. "You actually came. I told you I want my half." She placed her own document on the table. "What is this?" he asked, suspicious. "Read it," she said firmly. He scanned the pages and his face went pale. A legal claim, filed 3 days after the lottery win, backdated with bank records proving she'd purchased a ticket. A petition for asset division. Witness statements from the shop owner. Everything airtight and legal. Her lawyer had worked overnight. "This is real." Adiz nodded. "If you want this divorce, you'll give me what's mine." "Yes." He looked down, then looked at her again, fury rising. "You think you can threaten me? I'll bury you in court. I have the best lawyers in Lagos." She didn't flinch. "Then bury me. But you'll lose half of everything first. The law is clear." He didn't smile. "Get out." They sat across from each other in a lawyer's office in Victoria Island for 6 hours. The walls were glass, the city glittering outside. The air smelled of expensive cologne, leather, and bitterness. Marcus's legal team surrounded him, for lawyers in sharp suits. Adiz sat alone with one tired-looking attorney who'd taken her case for almost nothing. "Mrs. Chun," Marcus's lead lawyer began, voice dripping with condescension. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Adiz observed in silence, then spoke clearly. "How did my husband become a billionaire?" she asked softly but firmly. The lawyer looked up, annoyed. He hesitated, then said, "Mr. Chin won the lottery. That's public record." Adiz leaned in, staring directly at Marcus. "That's not the full truth. I won the lottery. I bought the ticket with money I'd saved selling my mother's jewelry while my husband sat home jobless for 2 years. Marcus looked away. "That doesn't matter. We were married. Joint assets." His hands were clenched tight. Adiz could see it clearly. He was hiding behind the law. But she had the truth. Then she pulled out her phone, pressing play on a voice recording. Marcus's voice filled the room, recorded 2 weeks after the win. "I can't believe that ticket hit. Thank God Adiz had some cash left. I was completely broke. Man, couldn't even buy airtime." The room went silent. Marcus's lawyers exchanged glances. Adiz's lawyer smiled for the first time. Marcus stood up and slammed his hand on the table. "This is manipulation." She remained seated. "It's the truth." He glared at her, voice rising despite his PR training. "You can't just walk in here and destroy everything I've built." She looked at him, voice calm but sharp as a blade. "You didn't build anything. We won it. Together. And you threw me away like I was nothing." Marcus said nothing, but inside he felt the ground shifting. This woman wasn't a quiet, obedient wife anymore. She had become something else, and he was terrified. Adiz came back the next week, then the week after, and again the week after that. Every court date, every mediation session, she appeared with her growing belly and her unshakable resolve. At first, Marcus fought hard, but soon, the media found out. Headlines screamed across Lagos blogs. Photos of pregnant Adiz outside the courthouse went viral. "Why is a billionaire fighting his pregnant wife?" One article asked. "Even rich men forget where they came from." Another wrote. Sometimes, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse, champagne in crystal glasses, and he thought about the woman carrying his child in a one-room apartment in Surulere, something he hadn't done in months. In those moments, Marcus felt something dangerous in his chest. Not guilt, not shame, fear. Real fear, the kind that no wealth or power could protect him from, but fear has a price. One evening, his publicist called him panicked. "Sir, we have a problem. A big one." "I'm handling it," Marcus said dismissively. "Sir, it's not just blogs anymore. CNN Africa picked it up. International media is calling you a monster. Your investors are nervous." Marcus stood at his floor-to-ceiling window, watching Lagos sprawl beneath him. The city that used to feel like his kingdom now felt like a prison. His publicist continued. "There's a petition online. 500,000 signatures demanding you pay your wife fairly. Protesters outside your office building. Marcus closed his eyes. Deep down, he already knew this woman was destroying his empire from the outside, and he'd given her every reason to. Marcus was sitting in the boardroom of his new company. City lights blazing behind him, a contract worth $50 million in front of him, a custom suit that cost more than most people's yearly salary. A perfect life by all measurements. Across from him, his business partners, sharp, calculating, the kind of people who only cared about profit. They were reviewing investment portfolios. "This deal is solid," one partner said, sliding projections across the table. "Clean reputation, strong returns." Marcus nodded slowly, but his mind wasn't on the numbers. His thoughts weren't even in the room. He was back in that small apartment with a woman who'd loved him when he was nothing with a baby he'd never held growing inside her. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. Adiz, standing outside a government office, signing papers. The caption read, half secured, "See you in court next week." Marcus's hand tightened around his phone. One choice had started this war. The next one would end everything. But miles away, in a small room in Surelier, Adiz sat on her bed, hand on her belly, tears streaming down her face. She whispered to her unborn child, "Your father chose money over us, but he doesn't know what I'm about to do with mine." Adiz had won her half, and Marcus didn't know yet. What will happen when he finds out what she's planning? He'll realize too late what he's lost. What do you think she'll do? Will she forgive him, or will she use her fortune to destroy the man who abandoned her? The judge's gavel fell like thunder. The court rules in favor of Mrs. Adiz Chun. The voice echoed to the packed courtroom. She is entitled to 50% of all lottery winnings and subsequent investments. Marcus sat frozen, his lawyers shuffling papers frantically. 50%. 175 million naira, plus half of every business he'd started with that money. Gone. Just like that. Adiz stood slowly. Hands supported her lower back. 8 months pregnant now. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply nodded to her lawyer and walked out of the courtroom with her head high. Outside, reporters swarmed like locusts. Camera flashes blinded her. Microphones shoved in her face. "Mrs. Chun, how does it feel to win? What will you do with the money? Do you have a message for your husband?" She stopped, turned to face the cameras. Her voice was steady, clear, amplified by the hunger for her story. "I have nothing to say to Marcus Chun, but I have everything to say to women who've been thrown away after they've given everything." The clip went viral within hours. 10 million views by morning. Marcus watched it alone in his penthouse, whiskey glass trembling in his hand. The woman on that screen wasn't the woman he'd married. She was someone new. Someone dangerous, someone he created by breaking her. His phone rang. His mother. He didn't answer. It rang again. His sister. He let it go to voicemail. Then a video call from his father. He couldn't ignore that. "You disgraced this family," his father said. No greeting. No warmth. "Dad, You threw out your pregnant wife for money you didn't even earn. Do you know what people are saying about us? About the Chin name?" Marcus set down his glass. "I did what I had to do." "You did what a coward does," his father spat. "Your grandfather built our name with honor. You're destroying it with greed." The call ended. Marcus sat in silence, the city lights mocking him through the glass. Everything he'd wanted, power, respect, freedom, was slipping through his fingers like sand. But the worst was yet to come. 3 days after the judgment, Adiz did something no one expected. She called a press conference. Not in a hotel ballroom, not in a fancy venue. In the same market where she used to sell vegetables to keep them fed when Marcus was unemployed. Ashadi Market, chaotic, loud, real. Hundreds of people gathered. Street vendors, motorcycle taxi drivers, mothers with babies on their backs. The people Marcus had left behind in his climb to the top. Adiz stood on a small platform, her lawyer beside her, a megaphone in her hand. "My name is Adiz Chun," she began, voice strong despite her exhaustion. "Some of you know my story. Many of you have your own stories just like it. Today, I'm here to do something my husband never understood. Give back. The crowd murmured, confused, curious. With my half of the lottery money, I'm starting a foundation, the Second Chance Foundation, for abandoned mothers, for children who need education, for small business owners who just need one break to change their lives. The crowd erupted. Cheers, tears, applause that shook the corrugated metal roofs. I'm also opening a free medical clinic here in Oshodi. Prenatal care, child delivery, medication. All free, because no woman should suffer alone like I have. More cheers, louder now. Marcus watched the live stream on his laptop. His office felt colder with every word she spoke. His CFO stood behind him, arms crossed. Sir, this is a PR nightmare. She's making you look like a villain. I am a villain, Marcus whispered, so quietly his CFO almost didn't hear. What? Nothing. Leave me. The CFO hesitated, then left. Marcus replayed the video. Adi's face, glowing despite everything. The way people looked at her with love, with respect, with hope. Everything he used to see in her eyes when she looked at him. He'd traded that for what? Penthouses? Cars? Emptiness? His empire was crumbling, not from financial ruin, but from something worse. Moral bankruptcy. The next morning, Marcus tried to fix it. He called his own press conference. Luxury hotel, chandeliers, champagne fountain. Politicians and socialites filled the room. I'm announcing a 10 million naira donation to charity, he declared, cameras flashing. The response was lukewarm. Later that day, a blogger posted comparison. Marcus donates 10 million after public shaming. Adiz commits 87.5 million, half her entire fortune, immediately after winning in court. You do the math. The post got 15 million views. Marcus's donation looked like exactly what it was. Damage control. Too little, too late. His business partners started pulling out. We can't be associated with this optics problem, they said in polite corporate language. Translation, you're toxic. His investors demanded meetings. The brand is suffering. Consumer sentiment is down 40%. Marcus fought back. He hired the best PR firm in West Africa. He gave interviews painting himself as misunderstood. He claimed that Dees was manipulating public opinion. But every move he made, she countered with action. He gave an interview about his difficult childhood. She opened a youth center in his old neighborhood with computers and books and opportunities. He posted photos of himself volunteering at a soup kitchen, obviously staged. She lived in Surulere, visibly pregnant, shopping in local markets, greeting people by name. Authenticity versus performance. The public knew the difference. One evening, Marcus sat in his car outside Adi's building. He'd been sitting there for an hour, working up the courage to go inside. He finally got out, climbed the narrow stairs, knocked on her door. She opened it, surprised. Marcus. Can we talk? He asked, voice small. She hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was tiny but clean, organized, filled with baby clothes and second-hand furniture. So different from his marble palace. They sat across from each other, the space between them an ocean. I made a mistake, he started. She said nothing. I let the money change me. I forgot what mattered. I forgot you. Adiz folded her hands over her belly. You didn't forget me, Marcus. You chose to leave me. There's a difference. I want to make it right. How? She asked, voice flat. I want to be in the baby's life. I want to support you. You want to repair your image. She cut him off. You don't want me. You want the public to stop hating you. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. She was right. I loved you. Adiz continued, tears finally falling. I loved you when you had nothing. I gave you everything, my savings, my hope, my future. And the second you didn't need me anymore, you discarded me like trash. Adiz, I'm not finished, she said firmly. You taught me something important. That love without respect is worthless. That promises mean nothing if character isn't there to back them up. She stood up slowly, walked to the door, opened it. I'll let you be in our child's life because every child deserves a father. But you and me, we're done. Forever. Marcus stood there, looking at the woman he'd destroyed, realizing too late what he'd lost. He walked to the door, paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't raise a child," she replied. "Money does. And I have plenty now, thanks to you." The door closed. Marcus stood in the hallway, the sound of his own breathing loud in his ears. He'd won the lottery. He'd lost everything that mattered. But Adi's revenge wasn't finished. Not even close. 2 weeks later, Marcus received a legal notice. Adiz was suing him again, this time for emotional distress and reputational damage. But attached to the lawsuit was something else. A business proposal. She was buying out his stake in 3 of his companies, the one she was legally entitled to half of, and she was bringing in new management. People who actually cared about ethics. Marcus called her immediately. "You can't do this." "I can," she said calmly. "And I am. Read the contract. Your lawyers will explain it. This will destroy me." There was a long pause. "Now you know how I felt," she whispered. Then she hung up. Marcus stood at his window, watching the city that no longer felt like his. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A photo. Adiz in a hospital bed, holding a newborn baby. A girl. Beautiful, tiny, perfect. The caption read, "She has your eyes, but she'll have my values. You're welcome to meet her, if you've learned what it means to be a man." Marcus stared at the photo, tears streaming down his face for the first time in months. His daughter, his flesh and blood, the only thing in his life that money couldn't buy and couldn't fix. What will Marcus do now? Will he finally change, or will his pride destroy his last chance at redemption? The answer was coming, and it would break him completely. Marcus stood outside the hospital, rain soaking through his expensive suit. Inside that building was his daughter, 2 days old, and the woman who'd beaten him at his own game. He brought flowers, baby gifts wrapped in designer paper, an apology rehearsed 100 times. But when he reached the door to Adiz's room, he stopped. Through the small window, he saw her, sitting up in bed, tired but glowing, their daughter sleeping on her chest. Adiz's mother sat beside her, gently stroking the baby's head. They were laughing about something, a moment of pure joy, a family, complete without him. Marcus's hand fell from the door handle. He couldn't go in. Not yet. Not like this. He turned away, walking back down the hospital corridor, past happy families and new beginnings he didn't deserve. Outside, his driver waited. "Home, sir?" Marcus shook his head. "Take me to Oshity Market." 20 minutes later, he stood in front of Adiz's foundation, the Second Chance Foundation. The building was modest, freshly painted, with a banner showing smiling mothers and children. Through the window, he saw women inside, pregnant women, receiving medical care, holding bags of groceries, learning skills on donated computers. Everything Adiz had built while he'd been drowning in self-pity.